The meeting was scheduled for 10. You arrived at 10:02 because the tram was late. You walk in and your professor, impeccably punctual, is already there. He looks at you and says dryly, "We are beginning pünktlich." We start on time. For some, this is clarity. For others, harshness. But behind that moment, there isn't just a person, not just a culture. There is an academic system designed to operate under certain rules that are sometimes unwritten. Welcome to the heart of the German efficiency myth. Today we'll explore 3 dimensions of German efficiency in academia. First, how punctuality and procedures function as tools for reducing uncertainty in complex systems. Second, the role of direct criticism and its effects on international researchers based on intercultural studies. And third, the boundaries between work and life, the so-called Feierabend, and how its ambiguity can generate systemic stress. In the end, we won't look for someone to blame, but for keys to more conscious and productive collaboration. Let's start with punctuality. This isn't just about being on time. For the German academic mind, time is a finite shared resource. Your 2-minute delay is, in their opinion, a theft of 2 minutes from everyone else in the room. It's a sign of disrespect for the collective project. The meeting agenda is not a suggestion. It's the law. They will go through point 1, 2, and 3, and they will end on time. All this means that German punctuality isn't just a cultural preference. It's a mechanism for reducing uncertainty in complex systems, as Niklas Luhmann described in his theory of social systems. But every system has its costs. As Sylvia Schroll-Machl highlights in Doing Business with Germans, this creates a fundamental perception gap. For the German side, adhering to the schedule is the ultimate form of reliability, is how they show professional respect. However, Schroll-Machl notes that for many international partners, this same behavior reads differently, not as reliability, but as a prioritization of the plan over the person, a rigid adherence to a structure that feels cold or inflexible. This also reflects what British sociologist Margaret Archer calls a clash of logics, when 2 frames of reference collide without either being inherently wrong. But if rigidity with time feels cold, rigidity with words can feel brutal. Once the meeting starts on time, the protective layer of social politeness often disappears. We move from the clock to the content, where we encounter the next friction point, a culture where feedback is separated entirely from feelings. But here is where we must look closer. This isn't a battle between a tough culture and a sensitive one. It is a clash between 2 different definitions of respect. For the German academic, respect is expressed through Sachlichkeit, radical objectivity. As Sylvia Schroll-Machl explains, they separate the person from the matter. To them, sugarcoating a flaw in your methodology isn't being kind, it's being unreliable. If I don't tell you the truth, I am failing you as a colleague. In this logic, the most sensitive things a supervisor can do is provide crystal clear, unfiltered feedback so you can succeed. However, many other cultures operate under a different logic of respect, relational harmony. Here, the truth is inseparable from the context. If I destroy your work without acknowledging your effort, I am destroying the bridge that allows us to work together. Take the case of a Mexican doctoral student. She hands in a chapter. In her culture, feedback is often wrapped in a sandwich form: praise, then correction, then encouragement. Her German supervisor skips the bread and serves only the meat. He points to a paragraph and says, "This is methodologically unsound, rewrite it." He thinks he is being helpful and clear. She hears, "You are incompetent." As mentioned before, this kind of conflict isn't about one person being too sensitive or the other too harsh. The conflict is that both are trying to be good professionals, using completely different manuals. As psychologist Carol Dweck suggests, if the environment doesn't clarify which manual we are using, we stop seeing feedback and start seeing threats. Silence follows not because of a lack of talent, but because of a lack of shared code.
Clarity should not be confused with abandonment. If the student feels unsafe, the objectivity has failed, because the brain cannot learn in a state of threat.
This idea is developed by Dr. Amy C. Edmondson in her article Psychological Safety and Learning Behavior in Work Teams, published in Administrative Science Quarterly in 1999. So, if the office is the place for radical objectivity and flashing manuals, where do we go to recover our sense of selves? This leads us to our third dimension, a boundary so sacred in Germany that it has its own name, a ritual that for some is a sanctuary of rest, but for international researchers can feel like a sudden wall of isolation. Let's talk about the Feierabend. In many cultures, work and life are a fluid continuum. You make friends at the office, you talk about your personal problems over coffee, and the professional and human are inseparable. But the German manual uses a different logic, compartmentalization. According to Sylvia Schroll-Machl, Germans often view their lives as a series of distinct spheres. When the clock hits 5 p.m., they don't just stop working, they switch modes. The colleague who was debating your methodology at 2 p.m. is now a private citizen. For international researchers, this can be the most confusing shock of all. You might think, if we are colleagues, why don't we go for a drink spontaneously? Or, why does everyone disappear so fast? It's easy to interpret this as coldness, but from the German perspective, the Feierabend is a tool for long-term efficiency. By closing the door completely, they prevent burnout. They aren't rejecting you, they are protecting the energy they need to be objectively excellent again tomorrow morning. The problem is that for a researcher far from home, the lab or the office is their primary social circle. When German colleagues retreat to their private spheres, the international researcher is left in a systemic vacuum. This isn't just a feeling, it's a structural risk. Data from the DAAD on the well-being of international academics highlights a sobering trend. Social isolation is one of the primary drivers of psychological stress and dropout rates. What was meant to be a protective wall for the local staff become a wall of loneliness for the visitor. For them, the lack of social integration in the workplace doesn't lead to rest. It leads to a different kind of exhaustion, burnout induced by isolation. Understanding the system is the first step. But how do we inhabit this space without burning out? To go beyond the usual advice, we need to apply what experts call metacommunication. Stop talking just about the work and start talking about how we work. For researchers, number 1, manage the expectation of error. Instead of waiting for feedback with anxiety, take a proactive role. Before submitting a draft, send a technical note. This draft focuses on the structure. I haven't polished the style yet. By framing the critique yourself, you align your supervisor's manual with your current stage, preventing Sachlichkeit from hitting you where you feel most vulnerable. Number 2, build low-intensity social capital. If the Feierabend prevents deep friendships, use the niche culture. In Germany, connection often happens through a specific interest. Running clubs, debate groups, etc. Don't look for generic office friends. Look for colleagues with whom you share a Sache, a common matter or hobby, outside the lab. This is the back door to German social integration. And finally, develop a dual ear. Learn to translate in real time. When you hear, this is wrong, your brain should process 2 channels. The data channel, the argument is weak, and the cultural channel. My supervisor trusts my autonomy enough to let me fix it. Resilience isn't just about enduring. It's about knowing how to filter. And now for supervisors and professors. Number 1, the context ROI, return on investment. Clarity without context is not efficiency. It's a risk of losing talent. Spending 5 minutes at the start of the relationship to explain your critique style reduces months of misunderstandings. Tell your students, my style is direct because I respect your time. It's not a judgment of your ability. This small time investment drastically increases the researcher's productivity. Number 2, low context bridges. Don't assume integration happens on its own. Create structures where socialization is part of the workflow. Work-in-progress seminars where errors are celebrated as data. This allows international researchers to feel secure within the structure without depending on social luck. And number 3, recognize cultural cognitive load. An international researcher is operating in 2 languages and 2 cultures simultaneously. That is an extra processing load. A good academic leader recognizes that the efficiency of that researcher should be measured differently during the first year. German efficiency is not an absolute truth, it's a language. And like any language, it requires practice, patience, and above all, the willingness to be translated. It's not about who is right, it's about how we build a space where scientific rigor does not stifle the humanity of those who produce it. If this episode has helped you put a name to that feeling of friction you experience every day in the lab, please share it with a colleague. Conversation is the first tool to break down the walls of systemic exclusion. In our next episode, we will dive deep into a feeling that many researchers keep silent, the feeling of being suspended in mid-air. We will talk about the experience of being a permanent stranger, the fragmented identity of someone who no longer fully belongs at home, yet hasn't found a place in the German structure. Don't miss our next chapter, Between Two Worlds, Work and Culture, an exploration of the feeling of being homeless in academia. I am Moises Medrano, and this has been The Efficiency Myth. Thank you for listening. Auf Wiederhören!